today's story. Chapter 1. Blind Trust. Royce Kilburn stared at the glass of bourbon in his hand, the amber liquid catching the late afternoon sun streaming through the penthouse windows. 10 years had passed since that rainy April morning when he'd left Westridge with nothing but a duffel bag and $150 in his pocket. Now, as CEO of Kilburn Innovations, he commanded a technology empire worth billions. His executive assistant, Morgan, knocked lightly on his office door. "Mr. Kilburn, the files you requested on Mercier Holdings." Royce's jaw tightened at the name. "Thank you, Morgan. That'll be all." Opening the folder revealed financial statements showing Mercier Holdings on the brink of bankruptcy. His parents' company, once the crown jewel of Westridge, was now drowning in debt. The memories flooded back. 5 years into his marriage with Brooke Mercier, Royce had thought he had everything: a loving wife, supportive in-laws who had taken him in when his own parents died, and a modest but growing investment portfolio. He'd worked his way up from stock boy to manager at Mercier department stores while putting himself through business school at night. Lawrence and Diane Mercier had seemed to accept him fully into their family, despite his humble beginnings. Lawrence often boasted about his self-made son-in-law at their country club gatherings, but Royce never quite belonged in their circle. What Lawrence didn't know was that Royce had been quietly building a separate investment account, putting away money for the business he dreamed of starting. Brooke knew about it. They'd agreed it would be their escape fund, their chance to break away from her family's shadow and build something of their own. That winter, Royce had noticed subtle changes in Brooke: late nights at charity functions, new clothes, perfume he didn't recognize. He'd dismissed his suspicions, buried himself in work and his night classes. His final semester was brutal, and he barely saw his wife. On graduation night, Lawrence had thrown him a lavish party at the Westridge Country Club. Royce remembered how Brooke had arrived late, how her smile seemed forced, how her eyes kept drifting to someone across the room: Asher Whitfield, Lawrence's new business partner. "You seem distant lately," Diane had commented to Royce that night, her voice lowered. "Don't take your wife for granted. Men like Asher don't wait for opportunities, they create them." The words had seemed odd then, but he'd brushed them off as the usual reminder of his outsider status. 2 days later, he received a notification from his bank that drained the blood from his face. A transfer of $175,000, his entire investment fund, had been initiated. By Brooke. Chapter 2. Betrayal's Edge. Royce burst through the doors of the Mercier estate, his graduation certificate still in his car, forgotten. He found Lawrence, Diane, and Brooke in the sunroom, having tea like it was any normal afternoon. "Where is it, Brooke?" he demanded, his voice eerily calm despite the storm raging inside him. Brooke set down her teacup, her hand trembling slightly. "What are you talking about?" "The money. Our future. The $175,000 you transferred out of our account yesterday." Lawrence rose slowly. "Sit down, Royce. This isn't how civilized people handle disagreements." "Civilized?" Royce laughed bitterly. "Is it civilized to steal from your spouse?" Diane sighed dramatically. "It wasn't stealing. That money belongs to this family." "What?" Royce felt like he'd been punched. "I've been patient," Lawrence said. "I've watched you squirrel away money that could have been invested in our family business. Money that my daughter deserved after supporting you through school. Money that, let's be honest, you only have because of the opportunities we gave you." Brooke finally met his eyes. "I'm leaving you, Royce. Asher and we've been seeing each other for months. I didn't know how to tell you." The betrayal knocked the air from his lungs. "And my money? That was what? A parting gift." "She deserves everything," Diane said coldly. "After what you put her through." "What I put her through?" Royce's voice rose. "I worked 60-hour weeks at your stores while completing my degree. I built that savings cent by cent. And where did you get the opportunity to earn those cents?" Lawrence countered. "Who gave you that manager position when you had no experience? Who introduced you to investment advisors? You were nothing when you met Brooke." The word nothing echoed in Royce's mind. He looked at Brooke, waiting for her to defend him, to acknowledge the years they'd spent building dreams together. Instead, she twisted her wedding ring off and placed it on the table. "I'm sorry, Royce, but Asher can give me the life I deserve. We're announcing our engagement next month." "Your engagement?" Royce felt his world crumbling. "How long have you been planning this?" "Long enough to know it's right," she replied, avoiding his gaze. Lawrence placed a hand on Royce's shoulder. I've had the lawyers draft divorce papers. Sign them. Take the settlement. It's generous, considering, and move on. We all know you don't belong in this world anyway. Royce shrugged off Lawrence's hand. My savings account, Brooke. Is that gone too? Her silence was answer enough. I see, Royce said, a coldness settling in his chest. You've taken everything. Not everything, Lawrence said. You still have your degree. And the salary from the store, though I'm afraid we'll be restructuring management soon. Royce understood with perfect clarity. They were cutting him out completely. Job, wife, money, family, all gone in one coordinated strike. We've arranged for you to stay at the Hampton Inn until you find a place, Diane added, as if offering a kindness. Your things have already been packed. Chapter 3. Exodus with $150. The Hampton Inn was a final humiliation. Royce found his belongings haphazardly thrown into luggage he didn't recognize. Cheap suitcases, not the leather set he and Brooke had bought for their 5th anniversary. His suits were missing, as were his watches and cufflinks, wedding gifts from Lawrence. The desk clerk handed him an envelope along with his room key. Inside was $150 cash and a note in Lawrence's handwriting. Severance. Best of luck. Royce laughed until tears streamed down his face. 5 years of marriage, countless hours of work, a business degree, and all he had to show for it was $150. That night, sleep eluded him. The faces of Lawrence, Diane, Brooke, and Asher flashed through his mind. He'd been a fool, believing he could join their world through hard work and loyalty. They'd seen him as nothing more than a diversion for their daughter, a capable employee to exploit. As dawn broke, Royce made a decision. He wouldn't waste energy on immediate revenge or public drama. No, he would disappear, rebuild, and return when they least expected it. Not as the desperate ex-husband, but as someone with the power to destroy everything they held dear. He withdrew his remaining $32.47 from his personal account before they could freeze that too. With $182.47 to his name, Royce bought a bus ticket to Pittsburgh, a city far enough away, but with enough opportunities for someone with his newly minted business degree. His first week in Pittsburgh was brutal. He stayed at a hostel, spent his days at the library researching companies and sending applications, and his evenings washing dishes at a diner for cash under the table. The work was mindless, giving him time to plan. 2 weeks in, one of the regular diner customers, a woman named Phoebe Santiago, noticed him reading a business journal during his break. You know anything about supply chain optimization? She asked, sliding into the booth across from him. Royce looked up, startled. Actually, it was my focus in business school. Phoebe raised an eyebrow. Business school graduate washing dishes? There's a story there. Not one worth telling, Royce replied. I disagree, she said, sliding a business card across the table. I run a logistics consulting firm. Small, but growing. One of my clients is having supply chain issues that are costing them millions. Fix it, and I'll give you 10% of my fee. Royce studied the card. Why would you trust a dishwasher with this? I don't, but I trust the desperation I see in your eyes. Hungry people work harder. She stood to leave. Besides, what have you got to lose? The next day, Royce met Phoebe at her office, a converted warehouse space filled with whiteboards and computer stations. She introduced him to her team of 4 and explained the problem. A manufacturing client with 18 facilities across 3 states was hemorrhaging money due to inefficient routing and inventory management. They've got consultants from McKinsey coming in next month, Phoebe explained. If we can't fix it before then, we lose the contract. Royce spent 3 days analyzing data, creating models, and developing a solution that would save the client an estimated $4.2 million annually. When he presented it to Phoebe, she stared at him in silence for a full minute. Where did you come from? She finally asked. Nowhere important, Royce answered. Phoebe implemented his solution. The client was so impressed they canceled the McKinsey consultation and doubled Phoebe's contract. True to her word, she gave Royce 10%, $120,000. Join my team, she offered. As a partner, not an employee. Why would you make me a partner? You barely know me. Because talent like yours comes along once in a lifetime, she said simply. And I'm smart enough to recognize it when I see it. For the first time since leaving Westridge, Royce felt something other than rage and humiliation. He felt seen. Chapter 4. Foundations of Empire. Over the next 3 years, Royce and Phoebe transformed Santiago Logistics into Santiago Kilburn Strategic Partners. Their client list expanded from regional manufacturers to Fortune 500 companies seeking to optimize their operations. Royce's innovative approaches to supply chain management and Phoebe's network of industry connections proved an unbeatable combination. Royce lived modestly despite his growing wealth. He rented a simple apartment, drove a reliable but unremarkable car, and invested nearly everything back into the business or his private portfolio. The memories of having everything stripped away kept him vigilant, trusting no one completely, not even Phoebe. He maintained a separate investment account that even she didn't know about. By the third year, that account had grown to over $5 million through aggressive but calculated investments in emerging tech companies. During a consultation with Webb Electronics, a consumer electronics manufacturer, Royce identified a fundamental flaw in their product development cycle. Instead of just fixing their supply chain, he rewrote their entire product development strategy. "This isn't what we hired you for," Phoebe warned as they prepared to present to Webb's executive team. "Trust me," Royce replied. "This is worth 10 times what they're paying us." Webb's CEO, Lincoln Webb, was initially skeptical of the young consultant's recommendations but agreed to implement them on a trial basis. 6 months later, Webb Electronics launched a new product line that captured 23% of the market in its first quarter. Lincoln called Royce personally. "Whatever we're paying you, it's not enough. Name your price to come work for us exclusively." Instead of accepting the job offer, Royce proposed something bolder, a joint venture to develop the next generation of smart home technology, with Santiago Kilburn providing the operational framework and Webb providing the hardware expertise. "You're not thinking big enough," Royce told Lincoln. "Webb Electronics can own the future of home automation, but you need a partner who understands how to build and scale the ecosystem, not just the devices." Webb Home Systems was born, with Royce holding a 30% stake separately from Santiago Kilburn's 15% share. Within 18 months, their integrated smart home platform was installed in over 200,000 homes, generating recurring subscription revenue that far outpaced the hardware sales. Phoebe confronted Royce about his separate deal with Webb. "You used our company's resources and reputation to build your own side business. That's not partnership, Royce. I built something that benefits all of us," he countered. Santiago Kilburn's valuation has tripled because of the Webb association. "It's not about the money," Phoebe argued. "It's about trust. We can't be partners if you're always planning your own exit strategy." Her words hit too close to home. Royce had indeed been planning his eventual separation from Santiago Kilburn, building his own empire within the shadow of their partnership. "You're right," he admitted, surprising her. "Let me make it right." Royce restructured his Webb holdings, giving Santiago Kilburn an additional 10% stake and retaining 20% personally. The gesture repaired their relationship temporarily, but Phoebe remained wary of his ultimate ambitions. By year 5, Royce had leveraged his Webb success into a network of technology investments spanning home automation, artificial intelligence, and advanced materials. His personal net worth crossed $100 million, though few outside his immediate circle knew it. He operated through shell companies and investment vehicles, keeping his growing influence hidden from public view. When he finally left Santiago Kilburn to focus on his own ventures, he did so amicably, selling his stake to Phoebe at a fair price and ensuring the company would thrive without him. She understood his need to build something entirely his own, even if she never fully trusted his motives. "Whatever demons you're running from," she said at their parting dinner, "I hope you find peace when you catch them." Royce merely smiled. Peace was never his objective. Chapter 5: Kilburn Rising. Kilburn Innovations emerged as Royce's flagship company, headquartered in a sleek glass tower in downtown Pittsburgh. Unlike Webb Home Systems, which focused on consumer technology, Kilburn specialized in enterprise-level artificial intelligence solutions that transformed how major corporations operated. Royce assembled a team of brilliant but overlooked talents, people with extraordinary skills who had been marginalized or undervalued by traditional corporate structures. His head of AI development, Zara Malhotra, had been passed over for promotion at 3 major tech firms despite creating algorithms that made millions for her employers. His chief strategist, Dominic Cruz, had been forced out of a venture capital firm after proposing investments that were deemed too risky. Investments that later yielded returns exceeding 4,000%. "I don't care about your background, your education, or who you know," Royce told each new hire. "I care about what you can build and how hungry you are to prove everyone who doubted you wrong." This philosophy created fierce loyalty among his team and a corporate culture unlike any other in the industry. Kilburn became known for its ruthless innovation and ability to identify opportunities others missed. Their breakthrough came with KI Core, an artificial intelligence platform that could predict supply chain disruptions, market shifts, and consumer behavior changes with unprecedented accuracy. Major retailers, manufacturers, and financial institutions paid premium prices for access to KI Core's insights, generating billions in revenue. As Kilburn's value soared, Royce maintained his privacy. He avoided industry conferences, rarely gave interviews, and never appeared in promotional materials for his company. His executive team handled public relations while he focused on strategy and expansion. This anonymity served a purpose beyond personal preference. Royce had begun tracking the Mercier family and their business interests through discreet channels. Lawrence had expanded Mercier Holdings beyond department stores into real estate and hospitality, but their growth was built on debt rather than innovation. Brooke and Asher Whitfield had married and assumed leadership roles in the company, with Asher serving as president and Brooke as chief marketing officer. From his digital reconnaissance, Royce learned that Mercier Holdings had over-leveraged itself, acquiring luxury properties in markets that were now declining. Their flagship department stores were losing ground to online retailers, and their attempts to develop an e-commerce presence had failed spectacularly due to poor implementation and lack of understanding of the digital landscape. Most significantly, they had invested heavily in a planned upscale mixed-use development called Mercier Grand, a combination of retail, residential, and office space that was intended to revitalize downtown Westridge. Construction had begun, but financing issues had already caused delays and budget overruns. Royce saw his opportunity taking shape. Through anonymous investment vehicles, he began acquiring debt instruments related to Mercier Holdings, particularly those connected to the Mercier Grand project. He also purchased land surrounding the development through shell companies, gradually tightening a financial noose around his former in-laws' necks, all while remaining completely invisible to them. By year 8 of his exile, Royce's fortune had grown to over $2 billion. Kilburn Innovations had expanded into cybersecurity, advanced materials, and quantum computing, with each division generating substantial profits. Forbes magazine named him one of the most influential technologists in America, though they could only publish a silhouette for his profile, as he refused all photographs. That same year, he received an intelligence report that Mercier Holdings was actively seeking outside investors to save the Mercier Grand project. They had approached several private equity firms, but had been rejected due to concerns about the company's overall debt load and management structure. The moment Royce had been planning for was finally approaching. He established a new entity called Phoenix Capital with himself as the anonymous principal investor and hired Vanessa Prescott, a formidable investment banker with no connections to his past, to serve as its public face. "Your job is simple," he told Vanessa during their first meeting. "Approach Mercier Holdings as a potential white knight investor. Express interest in their Mercier Grand project, but insist on meeting with the entire family leadership team, including Lawrence and Diane Mercier, before committing any funds." "What's your real interest in this company?" Vanessa asked bluntly. "Their financials are a mess, and this development project is unlikely to succeed given current market conditions." Royce's expression remained neutral. "Let me worry about the return on investment. Just get me in the room with the Merciers." Chapter 6. The Ghost Billionaire. As Phoenix Capital initiated contact with Mercier Holdings, Royce intensified his preparations. He had one opportunity to orchestrate the perfect downfall of the family that had destroyed his former life, and every detail needed to be flawless. Through his intelligence network, he learned that Lawrence and Diane had been gradually transferring operational control to Brooke and Asher, though Lawrence remained chairman of the board. The couple had 2 children, a 9-year-old daughter named Penelope and a 7-year-old son named Lawrence Jr., called LJ. They lived in the Mercier family estate, having renovated the East Wing into their own private quarters while Lawrence and Diane occupied the main house. Asher had proven himself an ambitious but reckless leader, initiating the Mercier Grand project despite warnings from their financial advisors about taking on additional debt. Brooke had rebranded the company with a focus on luxury and exclusivity, positioning Mercier as heritage luxury for the modern elite. Their marketing campaigns featured their picture-perfect family against the backdrop of their various properties, projecting an image of success and sophistication. What their polished public image concealed was a company on the brink of financial collapse. The Mercier Grand project was already 40% over budget. Their department stores were losing $3 million per month, and their credit rating had been downgraded twice in the past year. Phoenix Capital's expression of interest came at their moment of greatest desperation. Multiple banks had declined to extend additional credit, and 2 private equity firms had walked away after conducting due diligence. The Mercier Grand project had stalled, with half-completed structures standing as monuments to their miscalculation. Vanessa Prescott's initial meeting with Asher and their CFO went exactly as Royce had predicted. Asher attempted to portray their situation as a temporary cash flow issue rather than a fundamental business failure. "What we're offering is an opportunity to be part of Westridge's renaissance," Asher explained, showing architectural renderings of the completed Mercier Grand. "Once completed, this development will transform downtown and generate returns exceeding 22% annually." "These projections seem optimistic," Vanessa observed, "especially given current retail trends and the local market conditions." Asher's smile faltered slightly. "We have commitments from several luxury brands to anchor the retail portion, and the residential units are already 30% pre-sold." Vanessa consulted her notes. "Our information indicates those retail commitments have contingency clauses based on completion date and co-tenancy requirements. As for the pre-sales, weren't those primarily to friends and associates of the Mercier family at preferential rates?" The blood drained from Asher's face. Phoenix Capital had clearly done their homework. "My client remains interested," Vanessa continued smoothly, "but would require a meeting with the entire leadership team, including the chairman, before proceeding. We're considering an investment of up to $150 million, but only with certain structural changes to the organization." "What kind of changes?" Asher asked cautiously. "That would be discussed directly with my client. He prefers to remain anonymous until the final stages of negotiation, but I can tell you he's one of the 20 wealthiest individuals in America, with particular expertise in revitalizing legacy businesses." The bait was set. After a hurried board meeting, Mercier Holdings agreed to a direct meeting with Phoenix Capital's principal investor at their Westridge headquarters the following week. Lawrence insisted on attending, unwilling to relinquish control of such a crucial negotiation to his son-in-law. As Royce reviewed the meeting confirmation, a rare smile crossed his face. 9 years, 7 months, and 18 days after being thrown out with $150 in his pocket, he would return to Westridge, not as Royce Kilburn, the dishwasher or failed son-in-law, but as the ghost billionaire holding the Mercier family's fate in his hands. The night before the meeting, Royce flew his private jet to an airfield 30 miles from Westridge. He checked into the renovated Montgomery Hotel downtown under an alias, noting with satisfaction that the once grand establishment had declined significantly since the Merciers had sold it to a budget hotel chain 5 years earlier. From his hotel room, he could see the skeletal structures of the stalled Mercier Grand project illuminated by security lights. Construction equipment sat idle, and chain-link fencing surrounded the site. Temporary signs still proclaimed the future home of Mercier Grand, luxury redefined. The weather had begun to fade the glossy images. Royce laid out his custom-made charcoal suit, selected a blood-red tie, and placed his grandfather's pocket watch on the nightstand, the only possession from his previous life that they hadn't managed to take from him. Tomorrow, a decade of planning would culminate in the moment Lawrence Mercier realized exactly who held the power to save or destroy everything he had built. Chapter 7. Return to Westridge. The Mercier Holdings headquarters occupied the top 3 floors of the tallest building in Westridge, a 12-story glass and steel structure that Lawrence had commissioned during the company's expansion 15 years earlier. The boardroom featured floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city Lawrence had once dominated. including a direct view of the stalled Mercier Grant project. Royce arrived 15 minutes early for the 10 a.m. meeting, accompanied by Vanessa and two associates carrying leather portfolios filled with documents prepared for every contingency. The receptionist, not recognizing him from his previous life, directed them to wait in the executive lounge until the Merciers were ready. Nervous? Vanessa asked quietly as they sat surrounded by photographs of the Mercier family through the generations, including several featuring Brooke and Asher at charity galas and store openings. Focused, Royce replied, his eyes lingering on a family portrait taken just last year. Lawrence and Diane stood behind Brooke, Asher, and their two children, the perfect multi-generational family business. The imagery was deliberate, projecting stability and continuity to investors and customers alike. At precisely 10 a.m., Lawrence's executive assistant appeared to escort them to the boardroom. "Mr. Mercier apologizes for not greeting you personally," she explained. "The family is already assembled in the boardroom." The double doors opened to reveal the Mercier family seated along one side of a massive mahogany table. Lawrence at the center, flanked by Diane and their corporate attorney on one side, with Brooke and Asher on the other. Their CFO and two additional executives completed the lineup. Lawrence rose to greet them, extending his hand first to Vanessa, whom he assumed was the principal. "Ms. Prescott, thank you for coming. We're eager to discuss how Phoenix Capital might partner with Mercier Holdings." "Mr. Mercier," Vanessa replied with practiced precision, "allow me to introduce my employer, the founder and CEO of Kilburn Innovations and the principal investor of Phoenix Capital." She stepped aside, revealing Royce standing behind her. For 3 seconds, the room was absolutely silent as Lawrence stared at his former son-in-law. Then recognition dawned in his eyes, followed immediately by confusion and alarm. "Royce!" Lawrence's voice betrayed his shock. "What is this?" Brooke gasped, her hand reflexively covering her mouth. Asher's expression hardened as he assessed the threat this unexpected development presented. "Hello, Lawrence," Royce said calmly, placing his briefcase on the table. "It's been almost 10 years, hasn't it? Please, everyone remain seated. We have important business to discuss." "This is some kind of joke," Asher interjected, rising from his chair. "Vanessa, if this is your idea of—" "Mr. Whitfield," Vanessa cut him off. "I assure you this is quite serious. Mr. Kilburn is indeed the principal investor of Phoenix Capital, with resources exceeding $3 billion available for appropriate investment opportunities." "Kilburn," Lawrence repeated, noticing the name change. "You expect us to believe that you—" He gestured dismissively at Royce. "Are a billionaire investor?" Royce smiled thinly. "Not just any billionaire, Lawrence. The billionaire who currently holds $87 million of your company's debt through various acquisition vehicles, controls the land parcels adjacent to your failed Mercier Grant project, and has preemptive rights on the construction loans your banks are threatening to call." The color drained from Lawrence's face as the implications sank in. Their corporate attorney whispered urgently in his ear while the CFO frantically flipped through his documents, trying to verify Royce's claims. Diane found her voice first. "Why are you doing this? If this is about Brooke—" "This isn't about Brooke," Royce interrupted, his voice ice cold. "This is business. Your company needs $150 million to avoid bankruptcy within the next 90 days. I'm here to determine whether that investment makes financial sense for Phoenix Capital." "You can't possibly have that kind of money," Asher challenged, though doubt had begun to creep into his voice. Royce nodded to one of his associates, who opened a laptop and turned it to face the Merciers. On screen was a Bloomberg terminal display showing Kilburn Innovations' current market capitalization, $42.7 billion. "Perhaps you don't follow the technology sector," Royce commented. "Kilburn Innovations developed the AI platform that powers most of the logistics systems your competitors use, the ones that have been steadily eroding your market share for the past 5 years." Lawrence's shock was giving way to calculation. Always the businessman, he quickly assessed the new reality. "So you've done well for yourself. Congratulations. But why come back here? Why involve yourself with our company after all this time?" "An excellent question," Royce acknowledged. "One I'll answer after my team completes its due diligence." He turned to Vanessa. "Ms. Prescott, please walk the Mercier team through our initial findings and proposed terms." For the next hour, Vanessa methodically dismantled Mercier Holdings' financial statements, highlighting the cascading failures of leadership that had brought them to the brink of collapse. The company needed not just the $150 million for Mercier Grand, but an additional $70 million to restructure existing debt and update their failing retail operations. Throughout the presentation, Royce observed the family dynamics. Lawrence grew increasingly defensive, interrupting with justifications for each failed strategy. Diane maintained a facade of dignified calm, though her tightly clasped hands betrayed her anxiety. Brooke alternated between staring at Royce and avoiding his gaze entirely, while Asher's initial hostility had transformed into a calculating assessment of how to turn the situation to his advantage. When Vanessa concluded, Royce finally addressed the unspoken question hanging in the air. "You're wondering why I would consider saving the company owned by the people who once told me I was worth nothing," he said, looking directly at Lawrence. "The answer is simple. I'm not here to save Mercier Holdings. I'm here to acquire it, restructure it, and use its assets for my own purposes." "That's not going to happen," Lawrence declared flatly. "This company has been in the Mercier family for 3 generations. And it will die under your leadership," Royce countered. "Your choice is simple. Accept my terms or declare bankruptcy by the end of the quarter. My terms are non-negotiable, but they do allow the Mercier name to continue in some capacity." He slid a document across the table. "A preliminary term sheet. Phoenix Capital will provide $220 million in exchange for 71% ownership of a restructured entity. Lawrence and Diane will retire with a modest pension. Brooke and Asher may retain titular positions within the retail division, subject to performance metrics and oversight from Phoenix Capital's appointed CEO." "This is highway robbery," Asher sputtered. "We'll find another investor." "By all means try," Royce replied. "But be aware that I've acquired controlling positions in your debt structure. Any bankruptcy proceedings would result in Phoenix Capital gaining control of all your assets at an even lower valuation." Lawrence studied Royce with newfound respect and fear. "You've been planning this for years." 9 years, 7 months, and 19 days, Royce confirmed. "Ever since you told me I was nothing and sent me away with $150 in my pocket. You should have finished the job, Lawrence. Instead, you gave me just enough to start over. And now you want revenge," Diane stated flatly. "No, Diane. I want return on investment." Royce stood. "You have 48 hours to accept these terms before they expire and bankruptcy proceedings begin. Vanessa will remain in Westridge to answer any questions your legal team might have." As Royce gathered his materials, Brooke finally spoke directly to him. "Royce, please. Our children, they don't deserve to suffer for our mistakes." Royce looked at her for a long moment. "Interesting that you mention consequences now, Brooke. You have 48 hours to consider yours." With that, he walked out of the boardroom, leaving the Mercier family to contemplate the ruins of the empire they had built and the man they had underestimated returning to claim it all. Chapter 8. The Bargaining Table. The next morning, Royce received a call from Lawrence requesting a private meeting at the Montgomery Hotel. Against Vanessa's advice, he agreed, specifying that they meet in the hotel's nearly empty restaurant rather than his suite. Lawrence arrived precisely on time, looking significantly older than he had in the boardroom. The strain of potential financial ruin had deepened the lines on his face, and his normally immaculate appearance showed subtle signs of neglect: a slightly crooked tie, unpolished shoes. "Thank you for meeting me," Lawrence began after ordering coffee. "I thought we should speak privately, man to man." "We're well beyond that stage, Lawrence," Royce replied coolly. "But I'm curious what you think can be accomplished here." Lawrence leaned forward. "I want to understand what you really want. This can't just be about business. No one spends a decade planning such an elaborate takeover unless it's personal." "It was personal when you took everything from me," Royce acknowledged. "It became business when I realized how badly you were mismanaging Mercier Holdings. The company has potential, but not under your leadership. So this is revenge." "I prefer to call it justice," Royce corrected, "but with a healthy profit margin attached." Lawrence studied him. "The terms you're offering would destroy my family's legacy. 3 generations of Merciers built this company, and 1 generation is destroying it," Royce countered. "Your father would be ashamed of what you've done to his company, Lawrence. The debt, the failed expansion, the outdated business model. You're a dinosaur who refused to evolve. The barb struck home. Lawrence's father, Montgomery Mercier, had been a legend in retail, building a regional department store into a respected chain through innovation and careful financial management. Lawrence had always lived in his shadow. What if we counteroffered? Lawrence asked. Diane and I retire completely, as you suggested. Brooke and Asher step down from operational roles. You get controlling interest, but at a more reasonable 55%, not 71%. Royce smiled thinly. You're still thinking you have leverage. You don't. But I'm curious. Where's Asher in all this? I expected him to be here fighting for control. Lawrence's expression soured. Asher is exploring other options with some vulture fund out of New York. The man has always looked out for himself first. And Brooke? Lawrence hesitated. She's devastated, naturally. This would destroy her children's inheritance. Their inheritance was destroyed long before I returned, Royce pointed out. By your mismanagement and Asher's reckless expansions. They're innocent in all this, Lawrence insisted. Surely you don't want to punish children for their parents' mistakes. Royce leaned back, studying the man who had once held so much power over him. You still don't understand what's happening here, do you? I'm not interested in punishing anyone. I'm interested in acquiring undervalued assets, restructuring them for profitability, and achieving an appropriate return. The fact that these particular assets belong to people who once betrayed me is satisfying, but secondary. I don't believe you, Lawrence said flatly. No one goes to this much trouble without a personal vendetta. Believe what you want, Royce replied, rising from his seat. But understand this, your counteroffer is rejected. My terms stand, 71% ownership, complete restructuring of management, and your retirement. You have until tomorrow morning to accept, or bankruptcy proceedings begin Monday. As Lawrence watched him walk away, Royce felt none of the satisfaction he had anticipated from this moment. The man before him was diminished, clinging to remnants of power rather than the imperious figure who had dismissed him a decade earlier. It was almost disappointing. Back in his suite, Royce found a message waiting from Brooke requesting her own private meeting. He declined via text, instructing her to put any proposals in writing through proper channels. Within an hour, Vanessa called to inform him that Asher had approached her directly, offering to support Royce's takeover in exchange for a guaranteed position in the new structure and a separate side deal for himself. He's throwing his family under the bus to save himself, Vanessa observed. As expected, Royce replied. Tell him his offer is noted, but all terms will be finalized through formal channels only. By evening, the Mercier family was fracturing exactly as Royce had anticipated. Lawrence and Diane were desperately seeking alternatives while trying to preserve some dignity. Asher was looking for escape routes and personal advantage, and Brooke was caught in the middle, her privileged life collapsing around her. At 9 p.m., Royce received a final call, this time from Diane. You've won, she said without preamble when he answered. Lawrence will sign your agreement tomorrow, but I want you to look me in the eye when you take everything from us, just as we once did to you. That can be arranged, Royce replied. My lawyers will bring the paperwork to your office at 10 a.m. There was a pause before Diane spoke again, her voice softer. Was it worth it, Royce? Spending a decade planning this moment. For the first time, Royce allowed genuine emotion into his voice. When you and Lawrence took my savings and told me I was nothing, you didn't just take money. You took my dignity, my trust, my belief in basic human decency. So yes, Diane, watching you all realize that I now hold the power to erase everything you've built, that's worth every minute of the past 10 years. He ended the call and stood by the window, looking out at the Mercier Grand project in the distance, soon to be his first redevelopment project in Westridge. The structures that bore the Mercier name would be demolished, replaced by something entirely new. Tomorrow would bring the final act of his long-planned revenge, but Royce already felt the strange emptiness that comes with achieving a goal pursued for so long. He had expected to feel triumphant. Instead, he felt nothing. Not satisfaction or joy or even vindication. Just the hollow recognition that revenge, no matter how meticulously planned, could never truly heal the wounds that had driven him to seek it. Chapter 9. Ashes to Empire. The signing ceremony took place in the same boardroom where Royce had revealed himself 2 days earlier. The Mercier family arrived separately, Lawrence and Diane first, looking grim but resigned, Brooke next, her eyes red-rimmed, but her composure intact. And finally Asher, who entered with his own attorney, having clearly decided to protect his interests separately from the family. Royce's team had prepared the final agreements, modified slightly from the original terms. As Lawrence read through them, his expression darkened. "These terms are harsher than what you initially proposed," he observed. "The retention bonuses for key staff have been eliminated, and our pensions reduced by 30%. Market conditions changed," Royce replied smoothly. "Our final due diligence revealed additional liabilities that weren't properly disclosed. The terms have been adjusted accordingly." "This is bullshit," Asher interjected. "You're moving the goalposts because you know we have no choice." "That's correct, Asher. You have no choice." Royce turned to his lawyer. "Please explain the alternatives to Mr. Whitfield." The lawyer calmly outlined how bankruptcy proceedings would result in even worse outcomes for the Mercier family, with potential personal liability for Lawrence and Asher due to certain financial decisions they had made over the past 3 years. "You've been busy," Lawrence said quietly to Royce, "digging up everything you could find to use against us." "I learned from the best," Royce replied. "You taught me that business is ruthless, that sentiment has no place in transactions of this magnitude." Brooke, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. "What happens to the employees?" "There are over 300 people who depend on Mercier Holdings for their livelihoods." "An excellent question," Royce acknowledged. "The retail operations will be evaluated store by store. Profitable locations will remain open with current staff. Underperforming stores will be closed with standard severance packages. Corporate headquarters will see significant restructuring, but key talent will be retained." "And what happens to us?" Diane asked, gesturing to the family. "That depends on the role each of you chooses to play moving forward," Royce explained. "Lawrence and you will retire, as stipulated in the agreement. Your pension is still generous by any standard, $120,000 annually for life, plus medical benefits." "And Brooke?" Lawrence pressed. Royce glanced at his former wife. "Brooke may retain a non-executive position in marketing if she wishes, reporting to the new CMO. Her compensation would be commensurate with her actual contributions to the company, not her last name." "And me?" Asher demanded. "You, Asher, have no place in the restructured organization," Royce said coldly. "Your separation agreement is included in Section 12. You'll receive 6 months' salary and nothing more." Asher's face flushed with anger. "This is personal. You're punishing me because of Brooke." "No, Asher. I'm removing you because you're incompetent," Royce corrected. "The Mercier Grand Project was your brainchild, and it's a financial disaster. Your leadership has cost this company millions." "You son of a—" "Enough," Lawrence interrupted. "We have no choice but to accept these terms. Let's sign the documents and be done with this humiliation." One by one, the Merciers signed the agreements, transferring control of their family legacy to the man they had once discarded. When Lawrence signed the final document, he looked up at Royce with a mixture of defeat and bitter respect. "I hope this gives you what you wanted," he said quietly. "It's not about what I want, Lawrence. It's about what I earned." Royce gathered the signed documents. "You'll receive instructions from the transition team regarding next steps. I suggest you all begin clearing out your personal effects today." As they prepared to leave, Brooke approached Royce. "Can we speak privately? Please." After a moment's consideration, Royce nodded. 5 minutes. In Lawrence's office. Once alone, Brooke struggled to maintain her composure. "I know you hate me." "I don't hate you." "Brooke," Royce interrupted. "That would require emotional investment I no longer have in you." The words struck harder than any insult could have. Brooke visibly flinched. "Our children," she began again. "They don't understand what's happening. Their grandparents, their father and I, we're all they've known. This change will devastate them." "Children are remarkably resilient," Royce observed. "More so than adults give them credit for. They'll adapt to their new circumstances, just as I adapted to mine when I was forced to start over with nothing but $150 in my pocket." "Is that what this is?" Brooke asked, tears filling her eyes. "An eye for an eye? You lost everything, so now we must too." "Not everything," Royce corrected. "You and your family will still have more than most people dream of. Your parents' pension exceeds what many families earn in a year. You'll still have your home, your health, your family. I'm taking the company, Brooke, not your life." "It feels the same," she whispered. "No," Royce said firmly. It's not the same. When you and your parents took everything from me, you did it out of greed and contempt. You called me nothing and expected me to disappear into obscurity. What I'm doing now is business, cold and impersonal, perhaps, but transparent and according to contract law. The difference matters. Brooke wiped away a tear. Do you ever think about what might have been? If I hadn't, if we had stayed together? Royce studied her for a moment. The woman before him bore little resemblance to the young wife he had loved. The decade had changed them both. No, he said finally. That path closed long ago. We're different people now. I am sorry, she said softly. For what it's worth. It's worth very little, but I acknowledge your apology. Royce checked his watch. Your 5 minutes are up. The transition team will contact you regarding your position in marketing, should you choose to accept it. He left her standing alone in Lawrence's office, soon to be his office, and rejoined his team in the boardroom. The acquisition was complete. Mercier Holdings now belonged to Phoenix Capital, with Royce Kilburn as its controlling shareholder. Over the following weeks, the transformation began. The Mercier name was removed from all corporate materials, replaced by Phoenix Retail Group. The stalled Mercier Grand project was demolished, with plans announced for a technology campus that would bring over 1,000 high-paying jobs to Westridge. Lawrence and Diane retreated to their vacation home in Florida, their social standing in Westridge irreparably damaged. Asher, true to his nature, abandoned Brooke and their children once his financial prospects diminished, filing for divorce, and moving to Chicago to join a former business associates company. Brooke initially accepted the marketing position Royce had offered, but resigned after 3 months, unable to adapt to her reduced status within the company she had once expected to inherit. She sold the Mercier estate, which had been excluded from the company assets, and moved with her children to Boston to be near her sister. 6 months after the acquisition, Royce stood in his office, formerly Lawrence's, looking out at the city he had left in disgrace a decade earlier. Phoenix Retail Group was thriving under new management, with modernized stores, an expanded online presence, and streamlined operations. The technology campus rising from the ashes of Mercier Grand had attracted attention from major tech companies, positioning Westridge as an emerging technology hub. His assistant interrupted his thoughts. Ms. Prescott is here to see you, Mr. Kilburn. Vanessa entered, carrying a report on their latest acquisition target. The quarterly results for Phoenix Retail are impressive, she noted. The board is quite pleased with the turnaround. As they should be, Royce replied. We've accomplished in 6 months what the Merciers failed to do in 5 years. Speaking of the Merciers, Vanessa said carefully, I heard from our contacts that Brooke Whitfield, or I suppose she's Brooke Mercier again now, has reached out through intermediaries. She's apparently interested in reconciliation. Royce's expression remained impassive. There's nothing to reconcile. Our business is concluded. And Lawrence? Any word from him? None, Royce replied. Nor do I expect any. Lawrence Mercier is too proud to acknowledge his defeat, even now. Vanessa studied him thoughtfully. Was it worth it? All these years of planning, the resources invested, the single-minded focus on one goal. Royce considered the question carefully. The revenge he had sought had been achieved completely. The family that had dismantled his life now lived with the consequences of their actions. Yet the satisfaction he had expected remained elusive. It was necessary, he said finally. Not for the reasons I originally thought, but necessary nonetheless. I built something valuable in the process, something that extends far beyond the boundaries of personal vendetta. And now? Vanessa asked. Royce turned from the window to face her. Now we move forward. Phoenix has acquisition targets across 3 states, and Kilburn Innovations is launching 2 major initiatives next quarter. The past is settled. The future awaits. As Vanessa laid out the details of their next venture, Royce felt the last threads of his old life finally release their hold. The man who had left Westridge with $150 in his pocket no longer existed. In his place stood Royce Kilburn, architect of his own destiny, builder of empires, answerable to no one. The revenge he had sought for so long had transformed into something greater, not merely the destruction of those who had wronged him, but the creation of something they could never have imagined. From nothing, he had built everything. And in the end, that was the sweetest revenge of all. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.